What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another day of quarantine. My name is Bernie Kosar. Let's get started. If you can see the board behind me, I think you have a good idea what this video is about. Today we're doing a mock draft of round one for the NFL draft. It's coming up pretty soon, a couple days away. So I figured this was a good time to sort of get my big time dive in sort of detailed analytical mock draft, and we're going to do that today. I have the board set up. We'll cover all the picks. If your team's not picking today, I do plan on doing a second round of mock draft, so look forward to that. If you're a Steelers fan, Bears fan, Rams fan, I'm going to try to get a second round video up before the actual draft does happen. So, but today we're just doing the first round, and we're going to make all the picks. Let's get started with the obvious one. We're going to get this out of the way pretty quickly. The Bengals are going to take Joe Burrow, quarterback from LSU, #1 overall pick. Not much to say. We're just waiting for it to happen. So. Moving on. Let's get right into the Redskins at #2 overall. Now, Dan Snyder is an absolute moron, the owner of this team, so there's a million different ways he could screw this up. But for the sake of the argument of just doing the mock draft, I think the best available player is Chase Young, defensive end out of Ohio State. So that's what they should do. That's what they're going to do. Even if they trade back one spot, that's the player they need to target. They really need some help on defense. All right, moving on to the Detroit Lions. Traded away Darius Slay this offseason, so I think the conclusion that we can derive from that move is that they need a corner, and I think they're going to go with Jeffrey Okudah from Ohio State. He's defensive back #1 on a lot of people's boards, so I think that will be the pick that the Lions make. Even if they have to trade down one, I think he would still be there if the Dolphins want to move up. Maybe they move back 2 spots. But Jeffrey Okudah is a lockdown corner, and he should absolutely be the first one taken off the board. All right, #4 for the New York Giants. This is where things get interesting. Depending on what Dave Gettleman does at #4 is going to decide the rest of the draft. Your first 3 picks, Burrow, Young, Okudah, maybe somebody trades up to get Tua. Those are all pretty much set in stone. The Giants are going to determine how the rest of this draft goes. And for today, I know a lot of people have been mocking offensive line, Mekhi Becton, Tristan Wirfs, Andrew Thomas, Jedrick Wills. I'm going to go with a different route, and I'm going to go with Isaiah Simmons from Clemson, the do-it-all linebacker. And the reason for that is that Dave Gettleman likes to do crazy stuff with his first overall picks. You know, getting Daniel Jones last year. The year before that it was Barkley. So don't be surprised if he does something wild. And I think Isaiah Simmons is a good player. It would be a great addition to that defense. And it would be a good pick, but it would still be pretty wild. Moving on, another foregone conclusion, whether or not they have to trade up for him or if they just sit still and he falls, Tua Tagovailoa, quarterback from Alabama, is going to the Miami Dolphins, #5 overall. Like I said, whether or not they have to trade up to do that is anybody's guess. They probably will. They have the draft capital to do it. But I think Tua to the Dolphins is going to happen. Next, Chargers, interesting team. They're going into the offseason right now with Tyrod Taylor as their QB1. That's a yikes. But I don't think they take Justin Herbert. I think that offensive line is just so freaking bad. Melvin Gordon's not coming back. The defense is built to win now, but the offense has some issues. So they still have free agents out there: Cam Newton, Jameis Winston, Joe Flacco, Andy Dalton. They could probably get another quarterback that way. So I think they're going to go offensive line. They're going to get Mekhi Becton, offensive tackle from Louisville. And Becton scares a lot of people because of his raw athleticism. And he's a very large person. But I think he will serve well in the Chargers offense. So I think they'll go with that. #7, Carolina Panthers. According to local writers for local publications and beat writers that cover the team, it seems like interior defensive line is the place that they want to address. So I'm going to throw a curveball into this again and go with Javon Kinlaw, the defensive tackle from South Carolina. And I think he's probably better than Derek Brown. A lot of people have Derek Brown going in that spot. I, on the other hand, think Kinlaw is the better interior disruptor, pass rusher. Derek Brown is more of a run stopper, but Kinlaw you could have out there pretty much the entire time. Derek Brown, I think, is going to fall in this draft, and we're going to see how far he falls in this first round. Moving on, we have the Arizona Cardinals. I've plugged in CeeDee Lamb to this spot for most of the offseason, but they went ahead and absolutely fleeced Houston for DeAndre Hopkins. So now that they have DeAndre Hopkins, Larry Fitzgerald, and they still have a pretty good core of young wide receivers they got in last year's draft: Andy Isabella, Keyshawn Johnson, and they still have yet to see Hakeem Butler. So I think wide receiver is pretty settled. So I think they're going to go offensive line, which a lot of people thought they could do last year. And I think they're going to get Andrew Thomas from Georgia. And he is probably the safest pick of the first handful of offensive linemen. I think that'll be a great spot for him in that offensive scheme. And that's really all I got to say about that one. Moving on, Jacksonville Jaguars. This team is a case study for how fast a window can close and how far they've removed themselves from that championship defense that took them to the AFC title game a few years ago. So this defense needs to be rebuilt. They traded away AJ Abouye, so they have absolutely nothing in the secondary. So secondary is the play here, and I'm going to go with CJ Henderson, cornerback from Florida. Now, I've been critical of Henderson because of his tackling issues, but he's a lockdown corner, and he plays a lot of man coverage, and that's what Jacksonville does, even if Doug Marrone's going to get fired this year. CJ Henderson is the corner that I think a lot of people are overlooking just because of the tackling issues, but he had a very good point he made at the Combine. You don't sign corners to big contracts because they're good at tackling. They're good at coverage, and that's what he's good at. So I think CJ Henderson is going to sneak into the top 10 or top 15. Now, for the team that y'all are probably waiting for, most of you anyway, Cleveland Browns. Big players in free agency this year. Austin Hooper. They let go of a couple players on defense. It seems like they're going to run a lot of nickel and dime this year because they just have absolutely nobody at linebacker other than maybe Mack Wilson and the one guy that escapes me right now. But they've really telegraphed what they need, and what they need is somebody to replace Greg Robinson. And I think they're going to go with Tristan Wirfs out of Iowa. I listened to a podcast the other day, and they had a Browns media personality on there, media guy, and he was really hyping up Tristan Wirfs, Big Ten tested, big time offensive tackle, and I think he would fit well in Kevin Stefanski's outside zone scheme. So I'm going to go with Tristan Wirfs. Moving on with the New York Jets, number 11 overall. They need a lot of things too. They lack a serious pass rusher. They need offensive line help, and they need some more playmakers surrounded by Aaron Darnold. They absolutely do need a receiver. But I think the more important thing is protecting Sam Darnold at this point, so they're going to take whatever offensive tackle is left, and in this situation, it's Jedrick Wills from Alabama. That's the smart pick, and that's the pick they should make. Moving on to the Las Vegas Raiders. They need defense. They need a wide receiver. You're not going to be successful in this league with Tyrell Williams and Nelson Aguilar as your top two targets in a passing game. That's just not going to happen. So introducing Jerry Jeudy from Alabama. This is the player that they absolutely should take. They could go with CeeDee Lamb. I'd be happy with that, but they need wide receiver help in the worst way possible. Speaking of CeeDee Lamb, the 49ers traded DeForest Buckner to the Colts to get into this spot, and I think that's what they're going to go with. CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver from Oklahoma. A player I really like. Player that could go top 10 somewhere in here maybe, but dire needs have pushed him down the board a little bit. So I think the 49ers get CeeDee Lamb, pair him with Deebo Samuel. That'd be a sweet offense. I look forward to that. So please make this happen. All right, moving on to the Bucs, the winners of the Tom Brady sweepstakes, if it was a sweepstakes, I guess. I know the Chargers and Colts looked at them. So they're pretty set on offense, except for they need a running back and they need some offensive line help. Running back is not happening in the first round this year. Spoiler alert. But I think offensive line can happen. A lot of good offensive linemen are off the board. Maybe they trade down, get Isaiah Wilson. But if they stick in this spot, I think they're going to reach for Josh Jones from Utah. And they're going to help protect Tom Brady in the final year or years of his career. It's got to be the last one, right? It's got to be. Moving on to the Denver Broncos. Worst kept secret, Henry Ruggs from Alabama. He's the track star of this draft. Him and Jalen Reagor. Pair him with Drew Lock's cannon arm, and I think that's a good fit for that offense. They absolutely do need other things like offensive tackle, defensive help in the secondary, but I think Ruggs is overhyped a little bit, and it's going to showcase itself as he goes in the top 15 this year. Next, we've got the Falcons up. They got Fowler in free agency to shore up the edge rusher position. Now they do need defensive help, so I think in the secondary they're going to get Christian Fulton from LSU. That's a play they need to make to get better in this division that features Drew Brees and now Tom Brady. A lot of big-time good wide receivers in this division. They need secondary help to sort of mitigate that. Next, Cowboys, another team that needs secondary help really, really bad. I understand that. A lot of the good ones are off the board already. So why not get the second best edge rusher in the first round here, and that's K'Lavon Chaisson from LSU. Everybody's got them taking safety, like Xavier McKinney or Grant Delpit. I'm going to pass on that for right now and give them an edge rusher because I think that's what they need. Speaking of, the Dolphins here at number 18, they would like to have an offensive tackle this spot. Not available. We're going with Xavier McKinney from Alabama, safety. And I hate taking players that they traded away. Like they traded away Minka Fitzpatrick to get one of these extra draft picks, and it's kind of stupid to sort of use one of those draft picks to fill that position that you traded away. But in this case, it's the best player available. Moving on, the fall for Derrick Brown from Auburn is going to end right here. So I have Derrick Brown from the Auburn University of Auburn, I forget which it is, going to the Raiders to shore up that front seven. That's a great pick if Mike Mayock decides to make it. Jaguars second pick. They need more secondary help. Like I said, they have nobody. Everybody's gone. So Grant Delpit from LSU to play safety. That's a good choice there. Moving on to the Eagles. They need wide receiver help in the worst way possible. They traded for Darius Slay, so their secondary is now shored up. So I think Justin Jefferson from LSU would be a good pick for this spot. Moving on to my team. They traded away Stephon Diggs to the Bills to get into this spot at number 22 overall. I like Jeff Gladney out of TCU. We absolutely need cornerback help. Mackenzie Alexander is gone. Trey Waynes is gone. Xavier Rhodes is gone. Introduce Jeff Gladney to start opposite of Mike Hughes this year. Patriots. You notice one name I haven't called yet. Justin Herbert. This is going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen all the way to 23. It might happen to 15, 16, 17. Somebody trades up and gets him. This is going to happen. Teams are hesitant about his leadership. And you want a quarterback to be a leader. So I think he's going to fall. And it would be hilarious if he ends up in the Patriots. Absolutely hilarious. All right, moving on to the Saints. They got Emmanuel Sanders at free agency. Wide receiver is no longer an issue. I'm going to go with Kenneth Murray, the linebacker from Oklahoma. Best defensive player available for a position of need. The Vikings have a real problem with their interior defensive line. We did get Pierce from Baltimore in free agency. Still in three-tech hell, so we need somebody that can be an absolute monster in the middle. So I'm going with Ross Blacklock from TCU. Double dip into that university. We get Gladney, and now we got his teammate to shore up the defensive line. And we'll get a wide receiver later. We don't need to get one right now. Dolphins need an offensive tackle. Introducing Isaiah Wilson, the other offensive tackle from Georgia. And I think this is going to happen. There's a lot of reports about him getting taken in the first round. So he is now on the radar, and I think that would be a good fit. Seahawks need edge help. Clowney's not coming back. I like Zach Bond out of Wisconsin. Edge rusher, very important for this league, and I think he's a pretty good Seahawks player, and I think he'd do well there. Next, we have the Ravens at 28 overall. They need a linebacker, Patrick Queen from LSU. That'd be the pick that I would make. And I don't think they should go receiver quite yet. A lot of people have them taking wide receiver just so they can get another weapon. And I understand that. Their wide receiver core is pretty bad. But this wide receiver group is pretty deep. No need to reach for one. That's why I passed on all the Vikings picks, even though we need one really bad. All right, the Titans. They need a partner in crime for Harold Landry on the opposite side of that defensive line. Introducing Yetur Gross-Matos from Penn State. Didn't participate in the combine, but everybody really liked his interviews, so the interview process went really well for him. So he's definitely going to be in the first round, and he's a big time monster on that defensive line. Speaking of people who have good combines and good Senior Bowls, I'm going with Denzel Mims out of Baylor University, wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers. Please give Aaron Rodgers some help. Good God, that offense is a joke without him. All right, final two picks. I think these ones are going to be trades. I think 49ers trade out. Somebody moves up to get Jordan Love. And I think the Chiefs trade out probably for the same reason. 49ers need more picks. They don't have any more picks until the 5th round. But if they hold tight, Trayvon Diggs, corner from Alabama, because they do need corner help. We'll go with that. And then the last pick in the first round, a lot of people have a running back going in this spot. Damien Williams is fine, okay? Damien Williams is okay. We're going to get them a running back later on. So I think right now, A.J. Terrell, even though he got beat up in the championship game against LSU, A.J. Terrell from Clemson, cornerback, would be something that the Chiefs could do well with. Everybody got beat up against LSU, so that's not really even a red flag. So, but that is the first round of the 2020 NFL mock draft for this board. If there was something that you don't agree with, let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in round 2.